All right, we are live. I'm just making a quick update. There was a little
Live.
bit of a issue there. We got it fixed, and so we're cooking with gas now. And excellent. So here we're going to talk today about facilitation superpowers, and this is our fourth module in collaboration with Mural. It's been a lot of fun, kind of chatting and collaborating with them on, what are the elements that make for truly magical and truly engaging meetings, and how can the role of the facilitator play a part in that. And so we've talked about visual collaboration. We've talked about just what are the elements of good meetings. And then in this fourth module, we're really getting into how the facilitator can play a part. And so, John, what do you think about when you think about, or what comes to mind for you when you think about facilitation superpowers?
Yeah, well, first, people listening, I think one of the most important things you can do this week, this month, is to identify who are the true facilitators naturally inside of your organization. We can all become one, but already, whether they have the title or not, most likely they don't have the title of facilitator. There are facilitators inside of your organization. And hopefully today we can help you think about how to identify them. So back to your question, I think about somebody who is able to just host a conversation. They have an ability to ask good questions. So who asks really good questions in your organization? I think at the heart of what I do as a facilitator, I kind of feel like a documentarian or a journalist, just asking questions. We have structured way to ask questions. We have forms of verbal judo to handle different personalities and make the most of it. But ultimately, people are excited for that person to hold some space. As I'm saying that, you probably have a few people's names that come to mind in your organization or maybe in your community that are just that person that asks great questions, listens great, and just likes meeting. So at a high level, I would say anyone that has those attributes has natural abilities, therefore a lot of potential to be an amazing facilitator.
Absolutely. So we put together a template to as a companion to this content module, and we're gonna crack it up open here and have a look and walk through it with you. And the purpose of this module, or this mural template, is to think about how we might discover people on our team that have the most potential um, for I would say being great facilitators. And so first we kind of dive in and say, who in your team has potential and what skill do they have? And then we're going to move on and we're going to list out different types of meetings that you have. So we're going to pick the top four. So what are the ones that are maybe happen the most frequently, or the most critical, or the most likely to go sideways, or you might need a facilitator. And then number three, for each meeting type, what person has the exact set of skills, or maybe the closest match. And then four, we're going to think about things that could go wrong. So list out anything that's important to pay attention to and make note of it for your retrospective. So this is a bit of a pre-mortem. So we're going to think about, okay, if Susan is going to potentially prototype our retrospective meetings, what do we think about her skills that we or maybe some of her blind spots that we might want to be aware of. Of course, we hand over the reins, let her run with it. But these are going to be some things questions we specifically ask ourselves after the fact. So, John, thinking about number one, let's see here. What might think about, like, who do we think's exhibits unbiased, confident, humility, flexibility, curiosity, organized, active listeners, patient, compassionate, inclusive. And then feel free to add your own.
Yeah.
This is just a list to get you inspired.
Yeah. So, shout out to people on our team. When I think about confidence, I'm gonna go ahead and say Tara. Tara's really confident because she loves process, and so she puts together systems and checklists. So no matter what the type of workshop we have, I think she's great at facilitating the, all right, what's our next step, which is a different form of facilitation. It's sort of the like project kickoff facilitation. So that's one person that comes to mind. I'm going to have a bit of a egoic approach. I'm going to throw me out there, a bit of self-reflection. I think that I'm really great at the active listening. So I think everyone has a designer inside of them, whether they believe so or not. And design's not about how pretty of a thing can you make and draw. To me, it's really like, can you express a need or a solution to a problem? And if I, as the facilitator, can really listen deeply on what you're saying, I can use my design skills to maybe document that in a way to where you feel like you created something that you weren't capable of creating. In terms of objective, I think about you, Douglas. You're able to really listen to different personalities, even if they're disagreeing, and look at the objective reasoning or analysis that is unfolding in real time. So those are some examples of us going through this first step. Who on the team has some natural facilitation skills, and it's a fun thing to go through. But once you document this, you start looking at your unique collection of different facilitator strengths.
One that really jumps out to me as being patient and compassionate would be Kiara.
Yes, totally. Especially when in some of our events, when you're managing hundreds of people on Zoom breakouts, she, in moments what I feel like is chaos, she's just like super calm and handles it. So good point.
Excellent. Let's take a look here. What are some types of meetings that we have that that we might want to consider?
Yeah, the first that comes to mind is we developed a concept called the Focus Finder. So that is, I would categorize it as understanding client needs. So it's kind of our initial, when someone reaches out to Voltage Control to work with us, whether that's for training or to have us execute a workshop or event, we have an initial call with them. So that's something we're frequently doing.
Also, fearless feedback.
Yeah, fearless feedback is another one we do regularly after projects, and that's kind of our form of retro. I see you're typing weekly, our weekly sync, weekly glance meeting as a team. And then last, I think one that's very excited is our orientations. So before, days before we go on a journey with our clients, we have an orientation call to make sure everyone feels comfortable with the tools, understands the objective of the meeting, and that's pretty frequent.
Excellent. So let's take. I'm going to go ahead and copy these down. This is how I like to do this. You could, of course, just reference that list, but I like to copy them down and maybe turn them into another color so it's clear that these are reference. And then let's think about, given these folks we identified and these strengths, who might we consider for who might be good facilitators for these?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is because of Kiara's really calm nature, that feedback can be hard sometimes. So Kiara comes to mind for the fearless feedback, that skill set that we identified as a natural ability. I would say the focus finder, you're really great at, Douglas. That deep understanding of what someone's needs are, and maybe they don't even know it, but by you really listening and looking at it objectively, you're able to really help them zoom out, and that's the purpose of the focus finder. Weekly glance, I'd say Tara. Tara's like, what are we doing? How are we doing it? What systems are in place? And then I love orientation calls. So again, it's like right before we go on a journey, I'm going to get people understanding that this workshop is going to be very different from your usual meetings. It's going to be magical because all of you are going to be an artist. Yeah, this is such an awesome exercise.
Cool. So let's take a look here. I'm going to go ahead and, again, that's my personal preference. You certainly don't have to copy them over, but I find it handy just to kind of see the journey and things. So let's think about things that might go wrong. And it doesn't, it can be helpful to think about this lens of, Douglas doing the focus finder, John doing an orientation, Tara doing a weekly glance, Kiera doing a fearless feedback. But at the end of the day, it could also be, well, what about that meeting could go sideways regardless of who facilitates. Mm-hmm. So maybe just let's just identify one thing per meeting, and so we might keep that in mind when we do our retrospective.
Yeah. The one thing that comes to mind in the focus finder, Douglas, is sometimes the person that is our contact isn't really the person that is, let's call it a for lack of better words, like the main decision maker. So that can be a challenge, right? It's like you could sit there and really listen to the person, but then at the very end you find out like, oh wait, the person I'm talking to isn't the person that's going to make the call actually on the workshop or training. So that's something maybe that we could make sure, or maybe we change up the process of how we onboard someone to make sure that not only are we learning their needs, the person we're learning from is the person that can actually make change happen. That's an idea I have. Fearless feedback, what comes to mind is, I think, making sure that in the feedback that it's not just negative feedback or things to improve, making sure that people have a chance to express, here's some feedback on what you do great at. So making sure that there's a balance, because sometimes it could be unbalanced. And I think that could be an issue that even though Kiera is really graceful, it could be quite the downer if participants are really focused only on the negative. Weekly glance, something that could go wrong is all of the participants didn't prepare properly. So if no one's done their homework, if you will, then that meeting could be kind of stale, and then also could feel a bit micromanaging maybe. That comes to mind. Orientation, I mean, what comes to mind is just being unprepared and having technical issues. So again, best case scenario, everyone jumps into these awesome tools we've created, the Mural templates, etc. That's best case scenario, but sometimes someone's having an issue and they get frustrated with the tool, and then they're like, this tool is not going to work. Yeah, those are some things that could go wrong.
Excellent. So as you can see, this can be a quick little tool to kind of imagine what we might need to think about when we're selecting facilitators on our team. We can kind of review a few options and then think about some of those scenarios. So we found it to be a really great way to just explore some of that stuff. And at the end of the day, facilitators can be a great addition to how you run meetings. They can really kind of shift the mindset, whether you bring in external facilitators or use folks in-house, or whether you're building a team or just borrowing folks from other teams. Really think about how that can shift the conversation.
Yeah, it's a great template to not just identify who are facilitators that should maybe be facilitating meetings, but I think it's just a short exercise that you have a moment to just think about team dynamics. And it's facilitation is not just meetings. Of course it is meetings, but it's just day-to-day interactions. And I think it surfaces some unique natural strengths amongst the team, which is just a refreshing thing to do.
Absolutely. Well, it was great chatting, John, and we'll see you all again sometime soon.
Awesome.